I wanted to talk about the Houston Rockets free agency because I needed a few days to kind of think about it, flip-flop back and forth between whether, they were crucial or detrimental overpays, how much the signings would have an impact on the team. And, at first, when I first saw Fred VanVleet's contract, we all knew the Rockets had to overpay for free agents considering they were one of the younger but worst teams in the NBA, despite having a lot of young talent. There was a lot of disorganization was the buzzword a lot of people used when they talked about the Rockets, and a lot of that was true, but a lot of it also was not only not being organized, but young players learning and playing in an unorganized environment, which is why I loved the Ime Udoka hire. But when it comes to the free agents, we all knew, everybody was talking about how the Rockets were looking to go into this season, the 2023-24 season, with more of a win-now mentality. Obviously, that was backed up by signing Udoka, and we all knew the Rockets were going to have to overpay if they wanted to make a meaningful improvement to their team. And when they signed Fred VanVleet to that 3-year, $130 million contract, at first I was the sticker shock of looking at the price. With Fred VanVleet and with Dillon Brooks, it was just jarring to see 3 years, $130 million deal and Fred VanVleet in the same sentence. Now, Fred VanVleet is a good player. He is a champion. He is one of the better three-point shooters at the point guard position, although his rim finishing leaves a lot to be desired, and that's where, his small stature kind of hinders him a little bit. He's also one of the best point of attack defenders in the NBA when healthy. He also took a step up in playmaking last year, and once the Raptors traded for Jakob Poeltl, the Fred VanVleet Jakob Poeltl pick and roll was one of the best pick and roll combinations in the NBA, points per possession wise. So Fred VanVleet is a good player, and he is going to add meaningful, impactful production to the Rockets, and he is a good point guard to play off of Jalen Green. But what was a stroke of genius in that contract is, this is according to Jackson Gatlin. I haven't seen it said anywhere else, but it seems like a lot of people know, or at least it's unspoken, but the third year of Fred VanVleet's contract is not guaranteed. And so basically, it's a 2-year, $86 million deal, which is perfectly a fine overpay for someone like Fred VanVleet, especially when you're going to overpay and you want to get impactful veteran players around your young players, but not just, vets that are at the end of the bench doing nothing and not getting a bunch of DMPs, but getting actual vets that have done stuff in the league. And Fred VanVleet fits that category. So I don't mind this contract too much, and I'll go over the main reason why I think this contract is a stroke of genius, but I have to talk about Dillon Brooks also, because that was the controversial signing, and it turns out there's a lot of incentives in Dillon Brooks's what was originally reported as a 4-year, $80 million contract can now become a 4-year, $90 million contract if, Dillon Brooks hits all of his incentives. And, at first, and this is coming off of a playoff run where Dillon Brooks found himself in a lot of controversy, talking shit to a bunch of players, and then, bloviating about it in the media. And I'm all for that stuff. You just gotta back it up or stand on it and not, go back on it or try to blame other people for the situation you created for yourself, which is what he did with all of LeBron trash talk. And then he tried to blame the media, for turning Dillon Brooks into a villain, even though Dillon Brooks was the one saying villain shit the entire time, trying to act like a WWE villain. And, we love that stuff as long as you stand on it. And he didn't stand on it. And so from a, mindset perspective, maybe a lot of people were turned off by Dillon Brooks, but at the end of the day, Dillon Brooks, I had him on my second team all defense. He was one of the important perimeter defenders on a Memphis Grizzlies team that had consistently been a good defense. I still am not sure about the contract. I kind of lean towards this is kind of an overpay because it's not just the contract, which is not the main issue for me. It's the shot selection Dillon Brooks has. It's the bad pull-up jump shots with 20 seconds on the shot clock, or the heat checks even though he's shooting like 33% from three. He also borderline has a lot of dirty plays, which, that type of player that, tries to get under your skin is an irritant and is also a really good defender. That whole combination, it lends itself to plays that could lead to some nasty stuff. Not calling Dillon Brooks an intentionally dirty player, but he has done some dirty shit. And with the way he conducted himself and all that stuff, I'm not going to lie, I was kind of turned off by that, and I've been a Dillon Brooks guy since I liked him, from his rookie year. It became apparent as a second-round pick that guy was going to be a player, but I didn't want that kind of attitude, I guess, around the young guys. But if the Rockets feel good about it and Ime Udoka feels good about it, then I feel good about it too. I mean, $20 million a year for an all-defensive level player who I imagine, hopefully, will change his shot diet a little bit and realize the pecking order, especially with all the Rockets' young talent. This actually could be a good signing. And not only because the cap is rising, and when you look at Dillon Brooks' deal, it starts off with a lot of money up front, and then it de-escalates as the years go on. And as the cap gets bigger, Dillon Brooks' salary is going to take up a smaller percentage of the cap. But with Dillon Brooks' contract and Fred VanVleet's contract, I actually think these contracts are fine for where the Rockets are in their timeline. Now, why would you ask why I think that? Because if you look, and I've looked on Rockets Spot Track for this, when Fred VanVleet's third year of his contract is up for team option in the 2025-26 season, Jalen Green presumably will just be starting the first year of his rookie level extension, his rookie level max extension, which he is extension eligible in the 2024 offseason next summer. Same thing for Alperen Sengun, who I hope is going to get a lot more offense ran through him. The Rockets kind of gradually did that as the year went on. Early in the season, everybody was wondering why the fuck aren't they running more stuff through Sengun, especially with how disorganized the offense looked. But regardless, as the year went on, they ran more stuff through Sengun. Basically, what I'm getting at is, and we can talk about Jock Landale too, who I thought was a great pickup for the Rockets. And considering how Jock Landale played in the playoffs and stuff, that is a great pickup for the Rockets. And it's a 4-year deal, but the second and third years are non-guaranteed, so the Rockets can just wipe their hands clean of it if, the Landale signing doesn't work out. But none of these contracts really overlap with the main guys that they drafted that need to get extended. Jabari Smith Jr. is also extension eligible in the 2024 summer, but he'll just be finishing up his second season, so I don't think the Rockets are even going to touch that yet until the 2025 summer. But none of the contracts the Rockets signed overlap with incoming extensions years down the road to all of their young players. And that's kind of good cap construction. Yes, they're overpays. Yes, they had to overpay to bring in guys that they thought they needed to make this team better, which is defense. They got a great defensive point of attack point guard. They got an all NBA defense level type of wing. And they also got Jock Landale, who is a little scheme versatile, can kind of do a little bit of everything. Not great, but not bad either. And they still have all their young players they're all going to get rotation minutes, like Jalen Green, obviously. That's your future. I'm so high on Jalen Green. Amen Thompson, I cannot wait to see Amen Thompson play. If the one game of Summer League was any indication, he's going to be a top 5 athlete in the NBA from day one. What's kind of crazy about the Thompson twins, just a side note, because I really didn't watch any Overtime Elite where the Thompson twins played, it's kind of ridiculous that Asar Thompson is also an elite level athlete, but Amen Thompson is like a demigod level athlete. It's crazy how the margin of error between elite athlete and alien level athlete and, good to elite, etc., etc. It's crazy how thin the margin is, but I like Amen Thompson a lot. I like that pickup for them. I don't know what they're going to do with Jayshawn Tate. Is he going to be the 9th guy in the rotation? Because I kind of liked him too, but obviously he was injured quite a bit last year. And now with all these signings and all these new guys the Rockets drafted and the need to play these guys, I just wonder if Jae'Sean Tate will be a nice trade candidate down the road. Who knows? But I like this Rockets roster. I like their rotation. I don't know if they're going to, make a big leap like the playoffs. I actually don't think that's going to be the case at all. I could see them obviously fighting for a play-in spot, but the point is, I actually think the Rockets had a decent free agency. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it was an A+ and they knocked these signings out of the park. Still not so sure about the 4-year deal for Dillon Brooks, but it's not going to be detrimental, and he's absolutely going to help. But overall, I'd give the Rockets a C+ in free agency. I don't think the signings were as bad as everybody says. And they got Jeff Green, too, a nice veteran that, played in the NBA Finals. They also got Aaron Holiday, who I am still holding out hope for Aaron Holiday. But when it comes to Cam Whitmore, Tari Eason, Amen Thompson, Jabari Smith Jr., Jalen Green, they have a bunch of young talent. The Rockets just needed to surround the young players with veterans who can play and know what they're doing. And with Fred VanVleet, Dillon Brooks, Jeff Green, Jock Landale, Aaron Holiday, they've all been on winning teams. They've all been on semi to deep playoff runs, like Fred VanVleet in Jeff Green's case. Dillon Brooks has obviously been in Memphis his whole career and, made the playoffs quite a bit. But with how the contracts are constructed and how they won't overlap with, the franchise players the Rockets drafted in the lottery, I kind of like the Rockets offseason. They had goals and they accomplished them.